Okay, so this is the review test for my digital SAT prep book for math. And just really quick before I get started, just number 14 has a quick typo that I'm going to fix in the next 24 hours, but just in case you have a copy of this before then, it should say this, that you're looking for the volume of a cube with an edge length that is equal to the side length of this square. And then just remember, this is meant to be done 3 days before the exam, and technically you can have 63 minutes, but try to keep up the 1 minute per problem strategy, timing strategy. So let's start with number 1. So, which of the following systems of equations has no solution? So if it has no solution, think like it's an impossible situation. Like this cannot possibly work. And if you look at your options right away, D is impossible, because you can't, if you set these equal to each other, like let's say you have 12x plus 4 is equal to 12x plus 16. No matter what you put in for x, like it's going to be the same every single time. Like if I put 1 in for x and 1 in for x on each side, I'm never going to get the same number, because I can't have the same exact value on each side and then add different numbers and get the same result. That's impossible. It doesn't work. So it would be D, no solution. Okay, so let's go to number 2. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to this? Assume A and B are both positive numbers. So we're going to start by, I like to look at each term individually. So I'm going to start by looking at the 64. And then I'm going to say, okay, how can I rewrite 64 to some power? Well, I see in the answer choices that there's 2's and 64's involved. Now, if we're talking about rewriting this another way, I'm probably going to want to think in terms of 2's. So I'm going to think, okay, how many 2's gets me to 64, which I believe it's 6, I want to say, but let me just double check that. 4, 5, 6. Yes, it is 6. So 2 to the 6 is equal to 64. So that's the same thing. So we can rewrite 64 as 2 to the 6, and then we could say, oh, now I'm going to make this into an exponent that's a fraction, and the denominator is going to have to be 6 because it's a 6th root right there. So this is really 2 to the first power, because that just simplifies 6 over 6 to 1. Now let's look at the A portion, and let's say, okay, that's going to be to a fractional exponent. It's going to be 4 as the numerator, and then 6 as the denominator. And we could simplify that in a sec. Now we're going to go to B, same thing, but now 5 is going to be the numerator, and the denominator is going to be 6. So now all we need to do is simplify this fraction right here. Well, if I divide by 2 on top and bottom, I'm going to get A to the 2/3, and then I just copy down everything else. And yes, you are correct, D, for the person that said that. And thank you for the likes, guys. Please share this with anyone who needs help with SAT or ACT prep. Let me just erase this so it doesn't get in the way. So let's look at number 3 now. We have the table above represents the function h, which is a quadratic function. At what value of t does h reach its minimum? So you can use a calculator this entire time. I don't know why I put that there. I have to erase that. But remember, when you have a parabola and you have x-intercepts, the x value of your vertex is going to be halfway between the x-intercepts. Because think about it. Let's say you have a parabola like this. I mean, it's not drawn perfectly, but there's an x-intercept at 3, and there's an x-intercept at 5 if we were to plot those. The vertex, or you could call it the minimum, is going to be having an x value that's halfway between these. So what's halfway between 3 and 4, or 3 and 5, sorry, is going to be 4. So the answer would be D. What time you start to live? I just started right now. This isn't like my regularly scheduled one. My regularly scheduled one is every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So this is just like an extra one. Okay, so let's go to number 4. So we're trying to find what is the value of y. So you might be tempted to do not process of elimination, of the elimination method for solving the system, but because you see y and y, but remember, we're solving for y, so it doesn't really help us as much to get rid of y. Instead, we want to kind of get rid of x. Now, you could still use elimination, but you want to do it maybe in like a different way by like multiplying by 4, but that's not going to be the most efficient method. So we're going to say, okay, I'm going to try to be more efficient by getting x completely by itself and then substituting in. So I'm going to, well, let's see. Actually, it would be probably easier to do the top one. I'm going to do it with the top one because they're lower numbers. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to get x by itself by subtracting y on each side. So then I have 32x is equal to 96 minus y. Now I'm going to divide by 32 on each side. And then that's going to be 3, because 96 divided by 32 is 3, minus y over 32. And then you can just plug that in for x right there to do the substitution method. Oops. Now, I'm going to show the elimination method because that's the one that I don't really show as often on this channel. So, or I keep saying channel like it's YouTube, but on TikTok. So I'm going to try that actually now. So now we're going to do 32x plus y is equal to 96. And then if we multiply by 4 so that I can cancel out the x's, I'm going to get 32x plus 4y is equal to, and then 180 times 4 is going to be 0, 2, carry the 3, that's 720. And then we're going to now subtract so that we can eliminate the x's. So then we're left with negative 3y, because y minus 4y is negative 3y. And that's going to be equal to, I'm just going to do this off to the side so I don't make any calculation errors today in my head. And then that's going to be 624, negative 624, because we're subtracting a bigger number. So then now I'm going to divide by negative 3 on each side. So then that's going to be, someone said that they don't get it. If you could be more specific, I can explain it better in a way that you might be able to get it. So now let's do 624, or negative 624, sorry, divided by negative 3. And that's 208, positive 208 as our answer. I don't get how you got the 4y part. So I can't just decide to multiply the x portion, because then I'm just changing like one portion of my equation. It's not maintaining the same equation when I do that. I have to multiply every single portion by the 4. So I did 4 times 8x, 4 times y, and 4 times 180. I had to multiply the whole equation. The reason I did it by 4 is because I wanted to get rid of the x's. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to subtract these equations, how can I get rid of the x? Well, if I had a 32x on the bottom, I could subtract and cancel it out. So that's how I decided to multiply by the 4. Hopefully that helped. Okay. So let's go to number 5. Okay, great. Awesome that you get it now. And thank you for the likes, guys. Please like and share this to get it out to as many people as possible. So let's go to number 5. It says, from 2018 to 2019, college enrollment for College A increased by 9%. Given that college enrollment in 2019 is M times the 2018 college enrollment, what is the value of M? So remember, it's increasing by 9%. So you are basically, you have 100%, you have everything, right? And then it's going up by 9%. So you're really talking about 109% of whatever the value is for the college enrollment in 2018. So you want to take 109% of that number, which we need to first turn this into a decimal before we multiply by it to get the college enrollment for 2019. So we would have to turn this into 1.09 because we move the decimal 2 to the left. And that's going to be answer B. Yes, 1.9, correct. Okay, let's go to number 6. Assume we have this right here. What is the value of x? Where did the 109 come from? So we're increasing by 9%. So if you have all of something, you have 100% of it, right? You have everything, 100%. So if it's increasing by 9%, then we're talking about 109% of a number, if that number is going to increase by 9%. So in order to find 109% of a number, you have to turn it, the percent into a decimal and multiply by it. This is for digital SAT prep. So let's now look at this one right here. So you'll see that there's fractions involved. And what you want to do with that to kind of just not have to deal with all the icky rules that, I mean, it's not that bad if you're good at like operations with fractions, but it's annoying for most people, is you want to multiply by the different denominators. So like every denominator that's different, you're going to multiply by. That way you can cancel out the denominators. So I'm going to multiply by x and x minus 3. So when I multiply that by the 1 over x, the x's cancel out, and I'm just left with 1 times x minus 3. I'm not going to rewrite out the 1. So I'm going to just do x minus 3. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm now going to multiply all this by the minus 1 over x to the x minus 3. The x minus 3's cancel out, so then I'm left with minus x. And then I just have to do 2 times, wait, hold on. Did I do that right? X times x minus 3. Yeah, okay, good. Sorry, for some reason I was like mixing up the minus in my head. Okay, so now it's going to be 2 times x minus 3. So that's just going to be 2 times x minus 3. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. And it's okay if you're old now. I'm old. Well, I'm not that old, but I feel old on here sometimes. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. So now we're going to combine our like terms over here. So x minus x is just going to cancel out. So then we just have negative 3 is equal to, and then we're going to distribute the 2x to each of these terms inside the parentheses. 2x times x is going to be 2x squared. And then we're going to have 2x times negative 3. So that's going to be negative 6x. Now I'm going to add 3 to each side so that I have a quadratic equal to 0. So someone asked, how did you get 2x? So I did x times x minus 3. I was multiplying this times each of the terms, and one of the terms after the equal sign is a 2. So it's 2 times x minus 3. That's how I got that. So now I have a quadratic equal to 0, so I can figure out what a, b, and c are to plug it into the quadratic formula. Someone asked, wouldn't it be negative 2x squared? I think you might be thinking my equal sign looks like a negative, but it's not. It's an equal sign. So it's just 2 times positive x times x minus 3. So now this is going to be my A for the quadratic formula. This is going to be my B, and this is going to be my C. And the reason I'm multiplying everything by the denominators is to cancel them out so I don't have to work with fractions. It's just like a more efficient way for most students to do this problem, but you're free to do it another way if you prefer working with fractions. So now the quadratic formula says we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So now I'm going to plug in what my a, b, and c are. So I'm going to have x is equal to the negative of negative 6 is positive 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared, which is just going to be positive 36, minus 4 times a is 2 and c is 3. And then that's all going to be over 2 times 2 for a. So all I did was plug in a, b, and c accordingly. So b is just always going to be the number that's multiplied by x. So negative 6 is our b. And then a is always the number multiplied by x squared. So 2 is our a. And 3 is our c, because it's just c is always the number floating by itself. So now we're going to... simplify what's under the radical under the square root. So I'm going to have 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 24, because when I multiply all that out, I get 24 over 4. And don't worry, to the person that said the thing about the variables, I mess up on lives all the time. Like, people who've been here for a while will tell you that, because like all the numbers and variables get jumbled up in my head too. So 6 plus or minus the square root of, and then that's going to be just 12. And then we have over 4. You sound so nice. I try to be, so hopefully I am. And then, so now we're going to say, okay, can I simplify the square root? So I can, because 12 is the same thing as 4 times 3, and 4 is a perfect square. So I can say I have x is equal to 6 plus or minus 2 root 3, because I took out what the square root of 4 is, 2, and just left the 3. And then I have that over 4. Now I can divide by the greatest common factor, which happens to be 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. Kind of like simplifying a fraction. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so you're just left with the root 3. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So then I get as my answer 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. Now, let's see which of these has that. So 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. So that would just be answer choice D right there. Yes, quadratic formula. Correct. We use quadratic formula. Let me get rid of all of this mess right here. And just for anyone wondering like how I knew to use quadratic formula right away instead of factoring, if you look at the answer choices on like the SAT and ACT and you see these little symbols, these square roots, you have a quadratic, meaning something that's squared, you know that you should be using quadratic formula because it doesn't factor nicely. So let's go to number 7 now. So we have 2 data sets and we want to compare the medians of these data sets. So every single data point is the same except in data set Y we have a 26 added on. So let's think what's the median of each. Well, the median for the first one is just going to be, we have 2 middle numbers, so then we take the average of them. We do 8 plus 8 divided by 2, so that's 16 over 2, which is just 8. And then over here, we have an odd number list. So the middle number is just one value. It's just going to be 8 because then there's 3 on the left, 3 on the right. So the middle is 8. And so that means they have the same median. So I want to look for the answer that says that, which is just C. Okay. And by the way, if I miss anybody's questions, just so you know, I have a time at the end for questions. I try to pay attention, but sometimes it's hard while doing the math. So then let's go to number 8. Given that the point 6, 1 is a solution to a particular system of inequalities, which of the following could be the system of inequalities? So whenever they give you a point, they've given you an x, y. Like 6 is your x and 1 is your y. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in 6 for x and 1 for y into each of these scenarios to see, okay, which one is plausible or correct. So if I plug in 6 for x right there, I would say 6 is less than 0. Well, automatically that does not work. For this one, I can say 6 is greater than 0 when I plug in x. That works. Now let's try it for y. Y is 1, so 1 is greater than 0. That works. That's the answer. So then 6 is greater than 0, 1 is greater than 0. Yes, for the second one, yes, it's B. Do you do English as well? Not on lives, just because they're really unpopular on lives. So I put that content on, like, I'll do clips every once in a while on TikTok, but I have like a whole playlist on my YouTube channel. It's just that people seem to like the math way more. So I go with what the people like. So let's go to number 9. If y is equal to 3, then what is the value of y minus 10? So all you got to do is plug in 3 for y. 3 minus 10 is equal to negative 7. So let's go to number 10. 15m minus 8m. Wait, yeah, it would be fine if you did it each of those that way. Yeah, distributed property also works. What am I saying? 15m minus 8m is 7m. So you could have done minus each of these. I thought that I wrote this as like a more complex problem, so I was just going straight to like the distributed property, but it's pretty easy. So like you could also do 15m minus 6m minus 8m, or minus, oh my god, minus 2m. Jeez Louise. And then that's going to be 15m minus 6m is going to be 9m, and then 9m minus 2m is 7m. So either way works. So let's go to number 11. Given that you're tired, that's why you're messing up. I'm not tired. I just have, like, stuff gets, like, mixed up in my head sometimes. Like, sometimes I'll see, like, N's for M and stuff like that. or like I just like won't be thinking because I have ADHD and I make careless errors. But yeah, I'm not tired at all. Let's go to number 11. Given that the equation shown above, what given the equation shown above, what is the value of 24 plus 3x? So basically you have to find out what x is and then plug it in for x right here to find the overall value. So I'm going to start by subtracting 4 from each side. So then I'm going to have 2x is equal to 4. Then I'm going to divide by 2 on each side to get x is equal to 2. So then I just have to plug that in for x right there. So then I have 24 plus 3 times 2, so 24 plus 6, and that's just 30. Yes, correct, 30. Okay, so let's go to number 12. We have this figure with these parallel lines right here. The SAT is not typically like that easy. Like you're going to see some other problems. Like for instance, for number 14, we have to know how to complete the square for that. So like there are more advanced things, but you do get like some like freebies kind of thrown at you and some review stuff to see if you remember stuff that's like way back when. So this is going to be these two parallel lines. So they're basically giving us what x and what z are. So we know x is the same thing as saying 2m minus 7, and z is the same thing as saying negative 12m right over here. And we want to find the value of y. So these are supplementary. They add up to a straight line. And so if they add up to a straight line, they add up to 180 degrees. So I can say 2m minus 7 plus negative 12m is equal to 180 degrees. I would just solve for m first and then plug it in for m there, and then you get y. Trying to think if there's a more efficient way. I thought I saw a more efficient way for 1 second, but never mind. So negative 7 minus 10m is equal to 180. So now I'm going to add 7 to each side. So then I'm going to get negative 10m, and then plus 7 on each side is going to give me 187. Okay, so I have negative 18.7 is equal to m if I divide by that. So then I have to multiply the m, this value by negative 12. So then I'm going to have negative 12 times negative 18.7, which is just going to be, I was like, how am I getting a negative angle? But then I realized I was just looking at the wrong letter. I swear to God, I hate letters in math, even though I like love math. Like, especially because they all look the same, like Z's and M's and W's. And I wrote this to like purposely do that, because a lot of people do that in their head and like switch it up. And then I end up switching it up when I do it on lives. So 224.4 is the answer when you multiply that out. Okay, so let's go to number 13. The equation of a line in slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Which of the following equations gives the slope m in terms of y, x, and b? So all you have to do is get m by itself. So we're going to subtract b from each side. So we're going to get y minus b is equal to mx. So then, oops, that kind of looks like a y. That's supposed to be an x. So now to get m by itself, I just have to divide by x. So I'm going to get y minus b over x is equal to m. So that's just going to be A. Okay, so there's a debate going on about what's harder. Okay, so let's keep going. Number 14. So here we have the equation for a circle, and the circle is being inscribed in a square. So like what that means is like if you're gonna, let me draw it. I'm a terrible artist, but we're going to pretend I'm not for the purposes of this. Okay, so we're gonna undo that. So basically if it's inscribed, it's like touching all over here. And then like this would represent the diameter, which you'll see also matches up with the side length of one of the squares, or one side of the square. So if you want to find the area of the square, which is what the main question is asking, you need to know what the diameter of this circle is, which you can figure out from the equation of a circle if you complete the square here. So remember, the equation for a circle that we're used to is this. And someone asked if I think that Khan Academy prep is enough to get a good score. Yeah, it's enough to get a good score, but I wouldn't say like for the people that are wanting like top scores that it's enough. But yeah, it's a very good resource for just being completely free. But for a super high score, you definitely also need to do like the actual practice tests. And then like just to be on the safe side, like depending on how high you want, I would practice with like other harder resources. So especially now, because like the digital SAT is coming out and it's kind of like unprecedented. Like they've tested it overseas and stuff. But like we don't have as many like practice tests as we're used to with the paper exam. So like trying a bunch of different resources is probably going to be most helpful. So now let's see, we're going to figure out if we can figure out by completing the square here what the radius is. We can just double that to get the diameter. So I'm going to complete the square here. First, I'm going to add 45 to move it to the other side. So then I'm going to be left with, and I'm going to also I like to move the X's and the Y's together and then put like blanks for the completing the square parts. So that's what I'm doing here. Plus blank. Ooh, I should have set this up further to the left. Hold on, let me rewrite that. I'm running out of space. So that's going to be 3x squared. And actually, hold on, I can divide this whole thing by 3 because all of these are factors by 3. So let me actually do that first. So if I divide everything by 3, then this is going to turn into a 15. So I'm going to move 15 to the other side. And then this turns into a 4, this turns into a 6, and this turns into a 1 and a 1. So now I'm going to have x squared plus or minus 4x plus whatever I put to complete the square there, plus y squared plus 6y plus, and then a blank here. And then I'm going to have on the other side 15 plus, and then I put a blank plus a blank, because remember, we always have to keep our equations balanced. So if I'm adding stuff on this side, I have to add it to the other side to keep it equal. So now what we're going to do is complete the square. So whatever goes in this blank is just going to be, basically you divide what's in front of x by 2 and then square it. So negative 4 divided by 2 is just going to be negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. And then you do the same thing here. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Square that, you get 9. And then you have to add those same numbers to the right-hand side to keep the equation balanced. So now we're just going to factor out this and this to look more like the equation of a circle we're used to. So if I want to do the x part, it's going to be x minus 2 squared. And then the y part would just be y plus 3. Yeah, y plus 3 squared. And that has to equal, now I'm going to add up all this on the right-hand side. 15 plus 4 is 19. 19 plus 9 is 28. So now I have that r squared is equal to 28. The radius squared equals 28. So if I can take the square root of each side, I have the radius, and then I could double it to get diameter. So the radius is equal to the square root of 28. 28 is the same thing as 7 times 4. Square root of 4 is 2, so I could take out a 2, leave a 7. And then I'm going to double it to get the diameter. So then I'm going to have 4 root 7 as my diameter right there. And then, let's see. The square root of 28 is irrational, so you do more factoring. You don't need to, I mean, you factor to do the 7 times 4, and then you take out the 2, if that's what you're saying. I'm kind of confused by your phrasing, but yeah, you would just get 2 root 7 when you, I call it like simplifying the radical. And then you double it to get the diameter, which is 4 root 7. So the diameter is 4 root 7, which means each side length of the square is 4 root 7. So now to find the area, you would just do 4 root 7 times 4 root 7. So then the area is going to be equal to 4 times 4 is 16, and then times 7. So that's going to be 2, carry the 4, 112. And then the perimeter, oh yeah, square root, you could call it, I call it a square root sometimes too. It's just, I automatically, when I see this thing, I think radical. So then now we're going to do perimeter, which is just adding up all the sides, or you could think of it as multiplying by 4, whichever you want. 4 times 4 root 7 is going to be 16 root oops, 7. And then now the question over here that I changed is, what is the volume of a cube with an edge length that is equal to the side length of the square? So like a cube, where this is what S is representing, when we're talking about like side lengths, if you're used to like the formula of like the volume of a cube is S cubed, like this is S basically. So to find the volume, we need to do that cubed. So it's going to be 4 root 7 times 4 root 7 times 4 root 7. Now we already did 4 root 7 times 4 root 7 and got 112. So it's going to be 112 times 4 root 7. So then that's just going to be 448 root 7. My do pi times it because it's the diameter. So we're not finding the area of the circle, it's the area of the square it's inscribed in. So like pi, I think you're thinking of the formula associated with a circle. So you have to be careful with the wording on these. So now, let me just erase that. Okay, whoops. So now let's go to number 15. So we want to turn this into this. I'm part Russian, learning Russian more, so no problem. You don't need to say like my bad or anything. It's okay. So we're going to turn this into this, because equivalent means like they're equal, they're the same. It's just kind of like written differently. So let's think, how can we rewrite this to look more like this format? Well, I can factor out the 6 over 48 and say that this is the same thing as 6 over 48 times x to the 13 over x to the 5th. This is just like the before version, the precursor to getting to that. Like once I multiply it together, I have that. So it's the same thing. And then I could say, oh, I'm going to simplify the 6 over 48 because it has a greatest common factor of 6. So if I divide by 6 on top and bottom, I get 1/8. And then now I'm going to use quotient rule, which says if I'm dividing between things with like bases, I can just subtract the exponent. So it's just x to the 13 minus 5, which is 8, x to the 8th power. So now it's looking more like this expression. So I can figure out what k is by just looking at what's my exponent, which is 8. So 8 is the answer. So the kth root of 1/2 x is also the 13 root. Oh, yeah, you definitely overthought that. Okay, so let's go to number 16. So we have this dot plot right here, right? And then if another dot was plotted at 60, so we'll put another one right there. Which of the following gives the correct order of the mean, median, and range? So let's start with what's easiest, which is like range and median. So range is just the high minus the low. So range is going to equal 65 minus 35, which is equal to 30. And then the median is just the middle value. Whoopsies, I put an extra line. The median is just equal to the middle value. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's going to be 2 middle values right over here. And then we just have to find the average of them. So we're going to do 50 plus 55 divided by 2. So it's just going to be 52.5. And then we're going to say that's 52.5. So right away we could I think we can cancel out some of the answer choices. So the median definitely has to be greater than the range. So median being greater than the range, that is not for C and D. C and D does not say that the median is greater than the range. So now we just have to determine, is it A or B based off of what the mean is. So then the mean is just going to be the sum of all of these data points divided by how many data points. So when there's one dot on top of like 35, it means 35 is in your list one time. So like if I wrote this out as a set of values, that's what that means. And then this means I have 140 in my group. And then this means I have 3 45s. and this means I have 150. This means I have 155. And this means I have 3 60s because we add the extra one. So 60, 60, 60. And then this means I have 265. So like if you want to write out the whole list, that's what it means, like visually as a list of data points. But the faster method is you're still going to add all these up in a way, but you could do like multiplication, like say I have 3 groups of 45 instead of 45 plus 45 plus 45. Like the same thing with the 60s and the 65s. And then you're going to basically add all these up and divide by 12 because you have 12 data points in your list. So when you do that, let's see, hold on. I have 35 plus 40. I'm using my computer calculator, so it's going to take a second. So that's going to be 135 plus, oh my god, no, I exited out of my calculator. 50 plus 55. There we go. Okay. And then that's going to be 180. And then that's going to be plus 130. And then divided by 12. Okay, so that's like 52.083, yada, yada, yada. So it's very close, but it's less than the median. So if we're talking about like the order from least to greatest, like range would be the least, and then it would be mean, then median, so it would be B. Let's see, and you can't do it's easy either way, because if you didn't, that would be, I estimated it. Well, it's very close, so I don't know how estimating would work for you. Like, it's typically not that close on the exam. But yeah, I tried to be extra annoying when writing this, so. Let's go to number 17. If the table above corresponds with the function g, then which of the following equations defines g? So basically it's saying which equation works for the values in this table. And then, so now, let's see, all we have to do is plug in values for x and see if like we get the corresponding g of x. So I would start with the easiest one, 0, which doesn't really help you in this case, but sometimes it does, because if you plug in 0, you're going to be left with 12 for all of them. So then I'm going to try something else. I'll probably try 2 and 14, like plug in 2 for x and see if I get 14 for my g of x. So let's do that. 2 is going to be in there, then it's going to be 3 times 2. So it's going to be 4 minus 6 plus 12. So that's going to be negative 2 plus 12 is going to be positive 10. That's not 14, so it can't be that one. So now I'm going to go to g of x equaling all of this, and I'm going to plug in a 2 there. So it's going to be 2 times 2 squared. So, and then 3 times 2 over here. So this is going to be equal to 8 minus 6 plus 12. So that's going to be equal to 14. So that works. And then over here, I mean, this is definitely not going to work because it's a whole different thing that's being multiplied, and then the rest is the same. But if you want to see like it multiplied out to like explain why it's not going to work, then this would be 2 squared is 4. 4 times 14 is going to be, keep the 6, carry the 1, so 56. Let me just make sure my math is okay right now. Yeah, 56. Minus 6 plus 12, so that's 50 plus 12 is definitely not going to be equal to 14. And then we're going to do 2 squared right over here, times 18, and then 3 times 2. So this is going to be 18 times 4. So 18 times 4, hold on, I have to visualize it. So then that's going to be 2, carry the 3, 72, plus 6 plus 12. So that's definitely not going to be 14, so then it definitely has to be B. Sometimes I do forget to, the value I use for the variable to plug in. Yeah, so if that happens, like, that's why writing out, like, your work is so important if you're able to do that on, like, scratch paper and stuff. Or if it's the ACT on the actual booklet. Yeah, the circle. It's hard to get right on it when I'm looking at the phone at the same time. But yeah, I would just recommend writing out to avoid that. Like, your steps. So then let's go to number 18. The population of City A is rapidly growing. The number of people living in City A doubles every 4 years. If currently there are 20 people living in City A, how many people will be living in City A 24 years from now? So there's 20 people currently, and then every 4 years it's going to double. So if we're talking about a period of 24 years, and we divide that into intervals of 4 years, we have 6 different times it's going to double. So we're going to do times, and then it's going to be 2 to the 6th power, so it's going to double 6 different times. So then it's going to be 20 times 2 to the 6th, which is, what's 2 to the 6th? I always forget. I think, is that 64? I think that's 64, yeah. 64, and then times 20. What? Why did my computer do that? Okay. So that's going to be 1,280, so B. Wow, your life is empty? Yeah. It's pretty empty right now. But I have to get this done anyway, so might as well do it for the 12 people on here. Okay, so let's go to number 19. For the first 36 elements of the periodic table, the bar graph above shows the number of elements by their number of valence electrons. How many of these elements have at most 6 valence electrons? So how many have at most 6? So they could have 1 or 2, they could have 3 or 4, they could have 5 or 6. All of these work for the criteria we've been given. So we just need to add up all of these. So it's going to be 8 plus 8, which is 16, plus 9, which is just going to be 25. So yes, correct. 7 or 8 does not work because it's above it. So it wouldn't be like at most 6 valence. It would be past that. Let me get water really quick. Okay. So let's go to this graph is going to be used for the next couple of problems. So it's the graph of the function f of x, and thanks for the likes, guys. Which equation defines the function shown above? So right away, I'm going to try to use the characteristics of linear equations to help me quickly solve this. So I see that this is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept has to be positive 2. If I'm thinking in terms of y equals mx plus b, then that means I have to have plus 2, which only is in half the answer choices. Then I can look at if the slope is positive or negative. Well, it's increasing, so it's a positive slope, so it has to be b. And then let me erase that. So what is the slope that we've already discussed? Well, we discussed that it was positive, but we discussed what the line is. So this is the equation of the line. M, or the slope, is just what's being multiplied by x, so it's just 1. And then what are the coordinates of the x-intercept for f of x? So x-intercept is where it crosses or intercepts the x-axis, so that's at negative 2, 0. So that would just be A. Correct. And let's go to number 23. If the function f is rewritten as y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept, then what is the value of b? So this is referring still to the same function right here. So, and it's just kind of giving you extra words to try to confuse you. It's just asking what is b, what is the y-intercept, which we know is just 2. So C. Good job, guys. And then let's go to number 24. For what value of x does f of x equal 5? So think of f of x like your y. So we're being technically asked, at what x does y equal 5? So let's look for where y is 5. Well, y is 5 right over here. So that's going to match up with this x value, which is positive 3. So 3 is the answer to 24. And then we have number 25. If g of x is equal to all of this, then what is the value of g of f of 2? So remember, we know from the previous problem, or one of the previous problems, that the equation for f of x is equal to x plus 2. So you're going to start by figuring out what is f of 2. So everywhere that there's an x, I'm going to replace that with a 2. And then I'm going to get 2 plus 2, so that means that I have 4. So now, instead of writing f of 2, I can replace that with 4. And then, now everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a 4. So then this is going to be 8 minus 20, which is negative 12. So it would be B. Yes, correct, negative 12. So let's go to number 26. If line A is defined by the equation right here and line B is perpendicular to line A, what is the slope of line B? So we want the slope of line B. Now, we want to get this line A equation into y equals mx plus b format, because it's not right now. Y is with a bunch of other stuff. We want to get y completely by itself. So I'm going to subtract 20x from each side. So then I'm going to have minus 20x minus 8 is equal to 3y, and then I'm going to divide by 3 on each side. So then I'm going to have negative 20 over 3 times x minus 8/3 is equal to y. So now it's in y equals mx plus b format, so I can easily see what the slope is. The slope is whatever's being multiplied by x, so negative 20 over 3 is my slope. So then if I want to find the slope of a line that's perpendicular to this, I have to take the negative reciprocal slope, because perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes to each other. So all that means is I'm going to change the sign, and I'm going to flip it upside down to be 3 over 20. So that's the slope of the perpendicular line. One function turns into a... We created a monster out of the linear format. Yeah, it's just, there's a bunch of stuff in math where it's just like, let's think of 20 million ways to write this, but it all means the same thing. So then let's go to 27. It says a school is organizing a drama club. The cost for school to create the club is $200 per student plus a one-time $50 registration fee to register the club at the county level. What is the maximum number of students who can join the club if the school can spend $1,050 for the drama club? So let's write this as an equation. So let's say X is the number of students. So if they're going to spend $1,050 in total, they're going to spend all that after they do the $50 one-time fee plus $200 times each of the X students, like how many students they have. So I'm going to subtract 50 from each side, and that's going to give me 1,000 is equal to 200x, then divide by 200 to get x is equal to 5, so there's 5 students is the maximum number of students. Yes, another linear function. So then let's go to number 28. Given the systems of equations shown above, at how many points do the graphs of these equations intersect? Now, just so you know, you do have access to Desmos on the digital SAT, so you could technically just like plot these, or try to plot them if you want, to kind of see that. But you're going to see that like they never intersect when you do that. You could also just set these equal to each other because they're both saying y is equal to this. So like you could set them equal. You could say since y also equals 3x minus 11, I'm going to plug that in for y right here. And I'm going to say that's 3x minus 11 is equal to 3x plus 1. That was terrible handwriting. Hold on. And then you see that it's an impossible situation because you have the same value that it's expected that you get the same exact number when you're subtracting 11 from the same value as when you're adding 1 to the same value, which will never happen. So that's impossible. So there would be 0 solutions or like 0 points of intersection. So A. And then let's see. What are math practices? Where do you get these math things from? What are math practices for a 9th grader? So this has some stuff that you might have learned in 9th grade. Also, I have a bunch of other like specific resources that are outside of test prep stuff also on my TPT, but I wrote this, so that's where I got it from, my brain. But you can access it on my website if you go to ag-tutoring.com. It's in my profile. on my homepage of my website, there's a link to like my materials and stuff, and it'll take you to my TPT store, which a lot of this stuff is free too. I release free stuff and paid stuff. Okay. So, what does the p-intercept represent? So, let's see. This is the photographer. So, p-intercept is like the y-intercept. Okay, so I see what you're talking about. You're talking about this one right here. Okay, so the y-intercept or p-intercept is -20, and this is the total daily profit in dollars. Okay, so that's going to be the axis that represents the total daily profit in dollars. So, and that's corresponding with 0 hours being worked, and she's already in the negative 20 portion, so we have to think about that when we're interpreting the answer choices. So the cost per hour of hiring the photographer, that makes no sense. The daily cost of being the photographer, that could make sense because there's going to be, like, if you think about it, like the expenses, like the cost that you put into the business, like, I don't know, maybe it's like she's renting her camera or something, and like it costs you money before you start making money. So that matches up with this context of being in the negatives already. And then, so let's cross out A. The total cost of hiring the photographer, that has nothing to do with this, so no. And then it does have something to do with it, like it's about a photographer, but not with what the units are for, like, what we're doing. It's the daily profit for the photographer, not like the customer paying or anything like that. And the total number of hours that the photographer is hired. Remember, this axis is the hours one, so that doesn't make any sense. So then let's see, which of the following, and, so he owes $20 for working 0 hours. Yeah, it's like expenses. Like, it costs you a certain amount of money for, like, I guess, whatever, like the equipment or whatever you want to think about. Which of the following best represents the daily profit in terms of H? So basically, what's the equation for this? So let's see right away, the intercept is going to be -20, so we're going to have a -20, so it has to be C or D, yeah, because that one, A and B don't have that as the intercept, so it's either C or D. Now we have to determine the slope. So it's going, if we're going to pick, let's pick these 2 points, like whoops, there's my pen. Let's pick the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So it's going to be going up by 20 and over by 4. So then that's going to be 20 over 4 for the slope, which is going to be 5, so it's going to be D. Correct. The answer is D. So now let's go to 32. So what does the slope represent? The daily profit, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. So the daily profit made from each hour working for each hour that the photographer works. That matches up perfectly with our units, because remember, the P was representing the profit that they're making, and then the H is the hours worked. So if you're thinking about slope in units being like the change in Y over the change in X, or in this case, the change in P over the change in H, it would be the change in the daily profit over the change in the hours worked, or for each hour worked. So it's A. Thank you guys for sharing the live. So let's go to number 33. Yeah, slopes are awesome. Slopes are like very straightforward and nice. What does the point 4, 0 represent? So 4, 0, let's look at where that point is. Let me erase all this other stuff. So 4, 0 is right here. So we want to know, what does that represent? So let's think in units. Remember, this means that we have H, or the hours, being 4, and then that means that the profit, the daily profit, P, is 0. So they're making like, there's 0 daily profit happening after 4 hours of photographing or working as a photographer. So let's see. It cost the photographer $4. So remember, 4 was hours. So automatically I'm going to look and I'm going to see, okay, $4, that doesn't even match the units that 4 is supposed to be. So I can cross those out. This matches. I have 4 hours, 4 hours. That's why I always pay attention to units first. 4 hours. And then, so let's see. The photographer works 4 hours for free each day, or the photographer needs to work 4 hours per day to cover his or her daily expenses. It's D. So because even though the profit is zero, that doesn't mean that they're just working for free. It's that they have those expenses that they need to cover. Like maybe it's the rental equipment or whatever. That's why they're at the negative 20, because that's all going to cost them. Their expenses are like those $20. And then they have to like work up to work those 4 hours in order to have a zero daily profit where like they're not in the negatives anymore, basically, like where they're breaking even. Okay, so let's go to 34. In the UK Parliament, there are 650 members who vote on proposed legislation. If P members are in favor of a certain piece of legislation, which of the following expressions represents the percentage of the members in favor of this legislation? The circle. Yeah, here. Ooh, and I don't like that it's closed. Okay. So, which of the following expressions represents the percentage of members in favor of this legislation? So, there's going to be P members in favor of it out of the total, which is 650. So, like, if we're writing it as a fraction, it would be P over 650. And then to make the fraction into a percent, we would just multiply by 100. So then it's going to be A. And then, so let's go now to, oh, it's not there, it's over here. 35, which is 35 and 36 are referring to this right here. So for the scatter plot shown above, which answer choice is closest to the y value predicted by the line of best fit when the x value equals 1,625? So let's see where that is. So halfway between 1,500 and 2,000 is going to be 1,750, yeah. So then if you go halfway between the 1,500 and the 1,750, that's going to be the 1,625 or 1,625. So we're thinking here. And we want the y value predicted by the best fit line. So we're talking about this gray line right here is the best fit line. So we're talking about this right here. So like approximately where is that? So that's going to be somewhere between 45 and 50. So then that would just be B. I keep doing that where I'm not like seeing where I'm supposed to be circling. That's a little bit better. So B, 46. Okay. So now let's go to the next one. And we're just trying to find out which of the equations is most plausible for this line of best fit. So like what could be the equation for that line basically? Well, I see it has a positive slope. So I have to get rid of A and B automatically because they have a negative slope. And then I need to say, okay, is my y-intercept going to be positive or negative? Well, I see that it's a little bit above 0, so it's positive. So it has to be C. Why do you circle so badly? Because I'm doing it at, like, I'm guesstimating where C is based off of the video, because I have to hold up the video thing at the same time. So it's like, I can't see the paper, like it's distorted by the video. Okay, so then let's go to 37, which is referring to that above. Also, I fixed this. It should be updated within the next 24 hours if you have my book, just so you know. Because it was distorted in the workbook, but not the worksheets for some reason. I don't know why. So then we're going to figure out what the possible solutions are. So basically we're solving for x here. So I'm going to add 15 to each side to get the absolute value by itself. And then now we're going to say, okay, this is absolute value. So that means whatever's inside can be positive or negative. And then once you take the absolute value, you get the positive 15. So the way that I write that as two different scenarios would be like 21 minus x could be positive 15. And 21 minus x could be negative 15. So I'm going to solve for x in each of these scenarios. So I'm going to subtract 21 from each side. So I'm going to get negative x is equal to, that's going to be negative 6. And then if I divide by a negative, I get x is equal to positive 6. And then now I'm going to subtract 21 from each side. So then I'm going to get negative 36 is equal to negative x, divide by the negative to get x by itself, so x is positive 36. So 6 and positive 6 and positive 36, so B. I keep doing that. It's so hard to see it the right way unless I like peek around my camera thing. Someone asked a question, so you mean 21 minus x minus 15, 21 minus x is equal to negative 15, and 21 minus x is equal to positive 15, because think about it, this is equal to positive 15, so that means that what's on the inside could be positive 15, and you get 15, or what's on the inside could be negative 15, and you get 15. So that's why I set it up as those two different equations, because that's the two situations that could lead to 15 being the answer. So now let's go to number 38. So what type of function is graphed below? So this is going to be increasing linear, because first of all, you could just automatically cross out A and B, because I mean, linear literally has the word line in it because it's a straight line, and then read from left to right, it's increasing. So C. Yes, exponential would have like some sort of curve to it. So then let's go now, let me just erase that so it's nice and neat. And let's go to 39, and this is going to bother me. Hold on. Okay, so let's go to 39. The function h is defined by h of x, but the function h is defined by h of x is equal to 3 times x minus 1 squared if x is a negative solution. For what value of x does h of x equal 12? So instead of writing h of x, I'm going to put a 12 on there. And then I'm going to have 3 times x minus 1 squared. And then we're going to, someone said you're amazing at teaching math here on TikTok. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it. X to the y isn't really even a function. Yeah, you could do vertical line tests to just determine if something's a function really quick or not a function. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 3 on each side. So that's going to be 4 is equal to x minus 1 squared. Thank you for the likes, guys. And then so that means if this squared has to give me 4, then that means that value, x minus 1, could be a positive 2, because 2 squared gives me 4, or it could be a negative 2, because x minus 1, or could be negative 2, negative 2 squared is equal to 4 as well. So let's solve these two situations. So if I add 1 to each side, I'm going to get x is equal to 3. Same thing where I add 1 to each side over here, and I'm going to get negative 1 for x. But remember, it said x is a negative solution, so it's going to have to be this one right here. X is equal to negative 1. Now, you might not be used to this because on the paper version that everyone's used to, they used to say you can't have negative free response answers for the SAT, but now you can. Now they're allowing that. So that's totally fine. If you get a negative answer, don't be thrown off by that. The Riemann hypothesis will solve the mystery of prime numbers and break all graphs and stuff. It would... I'm getting really deep into it. I just like doing the math. I'm not into like the big like terminology and everything. And I can never, my memory is terrible. I can never remember names of anything. I just know what makes sense logically. I just teach logically. So then number 40, if the minimum value of x is 8 less than 3 times y, which of the following could represent the possible values of x? So 3 times y minus 8 would be how you write 8 less than 3 times y. And then, so just from that, we know it's probably going to be A or C. And then it's saying the minimum value of x. So that means x could be this, it could be equal to this, or it could be greater. Like if x is the minimum, if we're talking about the minimum value of x. So x could be equal to that or greater would be like this. So it would be A.